Smoke on my face. Right?
Well, yeah, are we live?
We live.
Do your thing.
Alright, so, good day, people. Sherman Joseph Barnwell here.
Marshall Barnwell. You introduced me. That was your show, bro.
Anyway, so, I found it so interesting.
What?
That the crazy teacher, me, who is always on the radio talking about the crisis that education is in, the issues with education.
That's your brand, man. It's your brand.
Transferred from the girls' high school with a report that says trying to make the students critical thinkers, anti-GHS.
It's one of them videos that.
It's one of these videos. It's one of the.
You can't pull me in this.
It's one of the. Crazy means you're right too soon. It means crazy means you're not slow. And I guess the rest of us has to catch up. So let me reiterate.
You have something to show me, and I don't understand.
Alright. So let me reiterate. So no, let me backtrack it. Let's follow the trajectory. So St. Vincent Times released a newspaper article stating that the Caribbean is in an education crisis. Who says this? Ta-da! The World Bank.
That is this, sir?
Yes. So on the 17th of February, the World Bank had a webinar, right, called the Education Crisis in the Caribbean, the Learning Skills and whatever. Anyway, the overview of this webinar said that 4.9% of students in the Caribbean is who pass CSEC examinations with math and English and 5 subjects, right? So they're saying that with this pass rate of 36%, this is mad crazy, that you can't possibly be having
I'm looking education at it, and see, what I'm seeing is from a data analyst perspective is 5% of students pass.
Okay, so let me break it down.
4.9% of students pass.
So let me break it down.
So you mean to tell me 95% of students?
Okay, so let me break it down.
Go ahead.
So for those who don't understand education, right? Those who understand that education
that's crazy numbers from a data analyst perspective.
Right, so let me tell you. So for those who don't understand, education is really for you to be employed, right? So it's either you can be self-employed or you can get employment. So each examination is basically like a rubric of qualification to understand your proficiency. For my subject, which is English, you have to gain a grade 1, because in order for you to establish that you're at C1 proficiency level, which is the rating scale for language proficiency, you have to get a grade 1. So anything beyond a grade 1 is not considered a pass, right?
Okay,
so for people who receive 2s and so on, it's in English, I guess it shows that you have a level of competency. I will do a live about competency levels, but I have a short on that.
Well, then my father did use the word crisis when describing this event. So
with math also has their criteria. I think CSEC capped it at 3. So if you get a 4 or 5 or anything now, I don't know. Then you have to have 3 other subjects. So math and English and 3 other subjects mean that you have a full certificate. A full certificate means that you can submit this certificate to a higher education institution and gain acceptance. Right? So you have to have your 1 in English, at least your 1, 2 or 3 in math, and a 1, 2 or 3 in any other subject area. If it's like French also, it has to be a 1 as well. Same, because it's a language. Right? So while this education statistics was going on, last year there was an article on One News which stated SVG's 2024 CSEC pass rate higher than that of 2023. When you scroll down, right, this is what the Ministry of Education tells us. The number has a slight increase from 72.16%. Right.
In 2023.
So it's now 73.60%. Now the reality is, when you look in the Education Statistical Digest and you look at these pass rates and they separate them in 1, 2 or 3, this number is fake. They took so long to release this number during the summer, because when everybody else in the Caribbean were releasing their statistics, I kept coming online and saying, where are these CAPE results? Where are the CSEC results?
Hold on. So when you say fake, you mean
as in they are inflated. So when we go to the Education Statistical Digest, look at the breakdown now. So with the Education Statistical Digest, you have a breakdown where they're showing you how many subjects you would have received per grade. Let me show you. Education Statistics Digest. This is, let's look at 2022 so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. So with the Education Statistics Digest, you scroll down to subjects, because these are just numbers about how many students, how many dropouts, and I already have my numbers about that. If you all want me to really go through the Education Statistical Digest and show what really is up, let me know in the comments if you want a breakdown of that. That led me to the understanding that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is severely underperforming in education, which I kept speaking about on numerous platforms. But then I was labeled as crazy. So I wonder who's crazy now? Y'all children in an education crisis.
No, definitely y'all. I keep touching the mic. Definitely y'all, because in our situation, Kaylee home, learning, coding, digital marketing, doing university courses and everything. Like,
they don't need to know my curriculum.
Okay, well, true. But as you rightly say, they're in an educational crisis.
Yeah,
I saw this train coming since actually my experience in teaching, like my actual experience in teaching. I realized, like, nah, this wouldn't make any sense whatsoever.
Alright, so let me look at this, right? 649, right? Look at the grade 1s, 1,089. Grade 2s, 2,273. Grade 3s, 3,059.
Okay.
Grade 4s, 2,169. Grade 5s, 955. And grade 6, 9. Right? So, really and truly, only 1,089 students got ones in subject areas. Right? So if you look at the 2s, 3s, 4s, and if you mix the 5 and the 6 together, they're basically more than ones alone. Okay. This is 2, this is 3, this is 2, and if you add 955 and 9, that's about 1,004, which is
don't try the math on camera, please.
Well, is it 1,000? I don't know, but it's right. So what they're telling you, so they're telling you, oh look, we have 66.55% passes, because they would have been counting all of these.
Oh, even the underperformance.
Right? But this is where they actually get caught, because here now we have the UNICEF. Look, this says UNICEF country profile St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So these are the different areas that they are looking at for the development goals, right? So when we go down to school, look at come here in education. You see what UNICEF says? Only around 30% of students pass CSEC exam, 5 subjects including maths and English. So UNICEF is saying only 30% of Vincentian students get this amount. Right? Okay. So 70% of the students who sit the examination don't get enough passes.
So they're underperforming.
They can't go to higher education. So when you see the government is talking about giving scholarships,
right? Okay. So help me understand this from a data analyst perspective.
Yeah.
Because in data analysis, I don't know if a lot of people knows how that works, but let me give you an example. If you were to go to a supermarket,
right,
this week, Wednesday this week,
right,
and then you go to the same supermarket Wednesday next week,
right,
and then the third week you go to the same supermarket,
right,
every Wednesday. The fourth time you go to the supermarket, say you lose your purse, right? Somebody finds your purse. They open the purse and they see a bunch of receipts from this same supermarket every Wednesday.
right.
They would have some kind of idea of where and when to find you to return this post based on those receipts. So that's data. So when you think about data-driven insights, you're using this data to formulate information that will help you accomplish a goal.
Right.
That's how we do it in data analysis. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, at any point was any data analysis done?
Well,
whether it be prior, during,
so this brings me to my analysis of what I think is the problem of education in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And this is why people label me as crazy. Because a lot of people don't realize the education crisis is the education system. They want to blame parents, they want to blame uniform, they want to blame every other insignificant thing. Because let's look at this. Look, they're saying that the Ministry of Education in preparing national commitments to transform key aspects of education, they're following the Global Transformation Education Summit. I have read these policies. I have read the DEI policy. I've read the 8 major policies that informs the global education policy. And we'll get to the global education policy when I go to the GPE 2025. So they're talking about all of these things that SVG needs to do. You see what SVG needs to do? They want people to spend. When you even look at the inclusion policy, they're saying that in order to get education where it needs to be, countries need to spend 20
use to evaluate whether or not an investment or embarking on a project is feasible, financially feasible. Like for instance, you may assess the net present value of a company, which means you're finding the present value of it using your prediction of future cash flows, like how much money you think it will make
potentially
in the future,
make,
right? There are other aspects. You have comparative analysis, where you may compare one project to the cost of another similar project, right?
They do that in education as well, because we have comparisons in the Caribbean. I'll show you that.
Right, good. So, but I'm looking from a policy standpoint.
Right.
So, say for instance, not to veer off education, but just help me understand it. You being the one who always following these, local governmental issues. Take for instance the parliamentary house that they just built. That's what we call it, the parliamentary house, right?
Yeah.
I remember there was some debate about the budget of this construction or the entire project.
Always a debate.
Right. So, if there was like a cost benefit analysis done, which is basically, that's another way of evaluating a project, right? As in you're looking at the cost of the project versus the benefit that it brings.
Investing in the children's future versus investing in the politicians'
and I'm even talking about the education, that's fair enough, but it's looking at a general scope. I will use the parliamentary house.
Right.
If the goal of the parliamentary house or the goal to be achieved is to like enhance civic engagement or somehow optimize the policy framework or the policy protocols in some way, the amount of money that they spend on that project would it's not coterminous to the actual goal, right? Because I'm saying, okay, if I were the government, I could guarantee you, I could have achieved that same goal with a fraction of the cost, especially just using, as we spoke about, data, right? You take data, and that's how AI works. Actually, it uses data to build these models to solve problems.
Well, so okay, for instance, let's go back to the data. No, wait.
No,
let's go to the data.
Forget us.
No, you're not going to forget because I'm going to show you something, right? I'm going to show you something. So this is the GPE. it says that St. Vincent and the Grenadines was not affected by any conflict or any fragility, right? So which means we had a fairly stable year. Now let's look at the sectors of progress. It says domestic finance expenditure for education, it's supposed to be around 20%. They say it shifted from 19 in 2020 to it dropped to 18%, right? So we're actually spending less money on education as we go along. So look at it. It says the progress.
Right, but why?
It says the progress on key. Listen to me. Look at the data I'm saying. This is education, right? This is education where teachers are always telling students, do your homework, submit your SBAs or whatever. Right. Look, progress on key enabling factors. So you have a project or you have a unit, and monitoring and evaluation is something that is mandated as part of your framework. Look what it says. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has undergone the enabling factors to review assessment, progress against challenges not yet reportable. Gender responsive planning, not yet reportable. Availability, not yet reportable.
So there's no
not
data.
Yet reportable. Not yet reportable. Sector coordination, not yet reportable.
This is what year we're
This is 2025. This is the GPE 2025, right?
So the data.
Let's go down.
Okay.
I just want to go down through the statistics, right? Look, we have inclusive local education. Y'all can read what these things say on your own, right? But what I'm gonna go is straight directly to the indicators and things that we are supposed to be monitoring and evaluating to inform, as you say, policy reform, implementation of policies, different frameworks, and so. Let's look at what this is saying. Doesn't have an active system capacity reporting on progress, hence indicators are not applicable. Data has not been available. This is the education system.
Well, that is what I was pointing out.
Let's go.
Like, you cannot have any progress without data. Like, how are you gonna?
Has no data.
That don't make no
has
sense.
no data. Has no data.
So why is there no data though?
I am going through the entire look, it says here, stick a pin. Girls Education Accelerator. There was actually grants available. Now I know there are grants available because while I was here on Bed Rest, I saw the UNICEF offering grants for the Passport to Education program, and I applied for that grant. But UNICEF and these organizations tend not to award private grants. If I had the support of the ministry behind me, I could have implemented a Passport to Earning program because it's all about online learning.
Who works at the ministry? Show me. You know the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now, here is a program. Everybody knows. Wait. Everybody knows. Everybody.
Depending on these.
Everybody knows that I have advertised my course as a one-year course because I have worked out a way to teach the CSEC syllabus to gifted students in 1 year, right? Or any independent learner in 1 year. Here we have a Girls Education Accelerator program. When I was at the girls' high school, I kept saying, why is this system of limiting and gatekeeping certain subjects? This is crippling the students. There are ways that I
always wonder that, and why is that? That's a cultural thing because
it is a cultural thing.
Brief stint to teaching, I remember you tell
a cultural thing, and I have proof to show you.
It's like they're trying to
they're keeping the status quo.
In like corral, like you're trying to
corral, right? So what happens there? Exactly? So what happens there? When they corral certain students, one sector doing sciences, and they're capping how many students do sciences, they're capping how many students do IT. They're basically controlling the future labor force, because they're capping access to education, which is against all the education frameworks of inclusion. Now, there are ways that we could transform our curriculum. I know how to do it. I have done it. I have made these plans. I know how to do it. And I know it can work, but I don't have the support from the ministry. And here is a grant about the Girls Education Accelerator program. We could have got a grant to do a pilot program to do accelerated learning at our gifted institutions for girls, convent, high school, right? These people at the Ministry of Education, we don't know what they're doing, right? But they're not collecting data, clearly. People who chastise students for not submitting SDA and not submitting homework. Here we have a whole education unit, non-submission of data, right? And you might say, oh, y'all being hard on the people because of COVID and blah, blah, blah. As we continue going down this, you realize that
and you talk about people, who gonna say that we being hard?
We already took our children out of school.
On the post, the
right?
people who
Let me show you this document.
I don't think people
this document, this document was in 2012. This is when we were doing our second education reform. This was around the time we had our education sector development plan in the works. So we had to use this data. This data is also from the World Bank. Right? So when you see World Bank want to increase our fees and our interest, it's not because they want to pressure us enough. They just know that mess is going on in this place. So here, the Education Management Information System Country Report of 2012. This was when they first started inventing the monitoring and evaluation mechanisms that we are currently using now. So this is how they know the status of the education system in St. Vincent because of these measuring mechanisms. In 2012, you notice what they said about St. Vincent, we were emerging. These were the key indicators here. Prerequisites of quality of data, assurances of integrity of data, methodological soundness of data, accuracy and reliability of data, serviceability of data, accessibility. Notice St. Vincent is always emerging. Since 2012 we emerging. I'm telling you, since 2012 we emerging. Let's go down to the data. So as they're looking at them side by side, you would realize they actually gave us recommendations on how to improve. Look at how St. Vincent is last here, right, when it comes to prerequisites of quality. And they actually told us responsibility for collecting information. They break it down and they gave us the score.
Yeah, but of course, this is a 2012 document. Right?
Yes, but what I'm trying to show is this is a 2012 document where we were emerging on how to collect data to inform policy. We are in 2025. That is literally 13 years after the fact. 13 years after the fact, and we still can't get right. That we have moved from emerging to no data at all. Yeah. Look, it says that we were emerging. There was some areas on the, look, we weren't last year, right? There was actually one area where we were mature, right, which is methodological soundness of subcomponents.
So
we had, no, because it says that we had an overall structure.
Shameless plug, but I'm a data analyst who lives in St. Vincent. Never mind, I was illegally fired by the government, right? But
I don't stop your data analyst because you still doing.
So what's the issue with the
when they said we were
of the data? Is it
look at this? It says methodological soundness.
Data that they receive, like you get data. Is it that
but in 2012, it says methodological soundness and subcomponents. So the overall structure, concepts, and definitions follow regionally and internationally accepted standards, guidelines, and good practice. We were mature, which means that the mechanism received an A+ from the World Bank. It says scope in accordance with international standards. That's a 0.5. And this has to do with special education needs because at the time we didn't have those systems. We still don't have those systems because we don't have a psychiatrist on the island to do screening, legal screening.
We can ask the questions and answer the questions. So as I say, we got to ask the questions, but we can't do everybody's job.
Right. Classification systems are consistent with international standards, guidelines, and our good practices. So basically, when we look at our methodological mechanism, as in the way in which we intend to carry out data collection, the way we told them in the paper we were going to do it, we received an A+ because it says mature. This is since 2012. So if in 2012 we had a good mechanism to evaluate data, why now in 2025 for the Global Partnership in Education report, St. Vincent cannot qualify for any grants because we do not have sufficient data.
They have some fire or something, but
that has nothing to do with education. This is education unit. I am going to show you this document that is basically comparing inclusive education throughout the Caribbean. Now we're looking at this and they're talking about Belize, we're talking about St. Lucia, we're talking about all these different things that Trinidad has done. Remember, all of these countries are following the same inclusive framework mandated by the UN.
Yeah, so these people are gonna come and talk about resources and
resources.
Like you already
right.
They're gonna be
right. So when they talk about resources, as the reason why education is failing in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, let's look at what the little data, the insufficient data that they provided says about St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The only time that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is mentioned in this
inclusion policy.
It says St. Vincent. Hold on. The only time that St. Vincent and the Grenadines was mentioned in this document, I was. Here are some of the things that affect inclusive education. Look, it says here, of all the countries for them to identify. You see what it says here?
St. Vincent. What's St. Vincent?
St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Some teachers look down on low performing students in secondary education
because
access used to be restricted to
the academically inclined students.
So basically, it is a recognized bias.
It is a recognized bias.
This is what report.
This is a report by the United Nations Education Scientific Cultural Organization Global Education Monitoring Report in the Caribbean and the status of inclusive education. So let me tell you something. UNESCO already realized that in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we are perpetuating the colonizer status quo, where we only reserve grooming in education and academics for a certain demographic.
Well, they would claim they improve because
we have a larger middle class. No, it's not. No, it is 2020. As you can see, St. Vincent has not been collecting much data. This is 2020.
They're gonna say that's 5 years ago. You know all these politicians
5 years ago.
Wanna be politicians
but 5 years ago. But since we have acknowledged that there is a bias by the teachers in education holding back the students, so the international organization already recognized that y'all are basically creating inequality in the country through robbing children of education. Systematic inequality.
Because that's what
this is what UNESCO has to the globe about St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
And UNESCO contributing money to education still, even
no, they are not. We have lost a lot of access to grants, and that is why our spending on education is so low.
How surprising.
And major of the reason is because lack of data. That has been, let me see which document I had that where they specifically say, oh yes, here it is. This is the SUMA report on education. So this is with the Latin America people. Notice it says GPE kicks and LACHUB.
I have a stupid question.
Yeah.
Are these documents available to the public?
I got them on Google. You understand?
Wow. Who looked them?
Here it has all of the recommendations for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, right? Now, before y'all go chastising teachers and killing teachers and saying,
I don't think it's a teacher thing. I think people know that this is a policy. There's a policy. The ministry definitely.
Let me tell you.
Ministry definitely, but I don't think it's
Ministry of Education in St. Vincent.
Except for a few, but not even a few.
The Ministry of Education in St. Vincent. Look, it says
and they guided by policy. I think policy is the major factor in.
So look at this, right? This is a document where people are going to do key analysis.
Yeah.
Key analysis, that's what they're saying, a SWOT analysis and all that they're going to do.
Right.
To identify
opportunities and trust. Remember, I explained to you what the SWOT analysis, right?
Right. So here they're going through the different criteria. So in inclusion, it have 8 broad areas that we look at for inclusion. So for people who believe that inclusion is just about special education needs students, no. right? Inclusion has 8 broad areas that you look at. Special education needs is just one of them. So they're going through the list of different areas there where inclusion will be affected because we are not ready and so on. So they're talking about the key issues. You see what I'm saying?
My key issues?
Yes, hold on. Right? They're talking about data collection as a major problem. What they need to do, increase data. Now in this same
Vincent.
Hold on. In the same document, in order for them to get the same document, you know what they had to do? They had to interview individuals from the ministry. These are the individuals interviewing. So before they go and chastise teachers in the school and principals in the school, or before they even go chastising Kim Martin
Jasmine
Crease, the one who was supposed
my friend,
to be
who was supposed to sign my
right. But I also want you to look at names like Oswald Robinson.
That's the guy who runs.
That is the teachers union guy. So when you're talking about stakeholders in education, all of these people are involved. The Ministry of Education individuals.
Because I would say key respondents in the data collection process.
Right.
So
these are people these are people who were supposed to provide the data because they're tasked to do so and interpret them based on their familiarity
question
with the data.
Is this both quantitative and qualitative data as in terms of
yes it is. So that is why it's so important, because I guess on a school level these ministry officials will be the one collecting data, because it's look at our school safety and all of that.
Right. That's Dr. Ford.
Right.
That's the same project I told you that.
Yeah.
Well, not really. Well, in terms of foreign affairs helping out in terms of protocol, I think they have like a delegation coming and everything.
So, look, we have Mr. Oswald Robinson here. Let me show you how Vincent Johnson's collect data, and I'm going to tell you this.
I'm going to assume a lot of qualitative as an
pause now. Okay. You're going too much into that. Let's focus here.
Okay.
Each interview was purposefully selected based on their experience and depth of knowledge of the education system in St. Vincent and Grenadines, as well as their ability to provide additional information needed for specific sections. Right? These participants were provided with a survey comprising open-ended questions, and if they were available for a Zoom or telephone interview, this was arranged following the completion of the survey. This is the reputation that all the ministry officials, and including the teachers union rep, due to conflicting demands facing the relevant personnel at the ministry as they grappled with the evolving pandemic and its impact on school processes. Some persons were able to complete the questionnaire, but unable to make time for an online interview. This is what the people have in the report, you know.
Where necessary
follow-up emails and WhatsApp messages were utilized
to obtain further details and clarifications based on initial data submissions.
Here what it says now. Engagement with the focal point was crucial to establishing communication with senior personnel in the Ministry of Education who provided important data that assisted with meeting the objectives.
They do a lot of that for us, and that's a lot of what we did facilitate the communication. But I could tell you a bit about how far.
So it goes through about all the different questions and so on, and what they think of the questions and all of that. And I'm asking a question. As we go through these statistics, the education crisis has been monitored and evaluated by the World Bank for the years, with a little bit of data that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been submitting to them. When you look at this information, you see a name like Oswald Robinson, you see a name like Jasmine Crease, Dixon Findley, you see all of these names that you're well acquainted with, and you ask yourself, if you are selected to contribute data to do a report that is going to have key analysis from analysts that you do not have access to in your country, but through the graces of these institutions, they provide their experts to analyze data for you. You fire an analyst from the airport. Yes.
I didn't know I was an analyst in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Yeah, just literally told me like there's no
one
analyst
to do this, right?
I don't know about that.
When you have documents like this floating around, I am labeled as crazy because I am reading these documents that don't present St. Vincent and the Grenadines in a positive light. They're saying that St. Vincent has the mechanism for proper monitoring and evaluation if they choose to use it. They're also saying that there are grants available. If the country does not have money, they can do what they're supposed to do, collect data, analyze them, present them in a project proposal, and get approved by these organizations and complete the project based on the criteria that you said you were going to do. People give project grants because they want data. It is not because of charity. These things have mechanisms, and we have to have a win-win-win situation in order for us to have
more than anyone know
individuals, for us to have individuals who are working for the children in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who are not going to be sitting on waiting for the government to give budget, but actually be out actively seeking investment in the education of the future of this country through the education of children and adults. Because in these same documents, depopulation is mentioned as a major issue, because this aging generation, much like these politicians who think that they could come and tell lies and the internet would not debunk their myths, they are at risk. They are at risk in this fourth industrial revolution because they're not technologically early adopters. Some of them are technologically and digitally illiterate, right?
In fields like data science,
they don't understand information. AI is gonna.
There's a terminology, or there's a saying. If you start off in last place when it comes to technology, you usually stick in last place, right? So if we, at this point in 2025, where the global, the globe is talking about AI in different aspects, from the consumer use to AI to AI development, even countries on an economic scale are investing in AI, right? There is hardly any narrative being pushed about AI and St. Vincent. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't any, but on the...
How can you be pushing AI in St. Vincent and the Grenadines when you give students tablets and laptops, but the teachers in the school constantly are complaining about screen time and screen time? Let me ask you a question. When you were at Foreign Affairs, what did you spend all your day doing? Not sitting in front of a screen. How did your eyes adapt to that? Not very well now, did you? Because you have to wear glasses and so on. Look, they're saying people who used to play video games, millennials who used to play video games, who enter into the field of medicine, they have been very well adaptive to robotics in medicine, because the dexterity that they gain from playing video games in their teenage years is actually working towards their benefit now that they have to deal with these robotic handlers in medicine.
Well, remember, the rest of the world are waiting on St. Vincent to catch up.
So when you look at, so this is my point exactly, when I kept saying, when teachers want to come in school and spend half an hour discussing uniform and all of these insignificant things, and they don't want to teach skills, they want students to do the rote memorization and all of that. That rote memorization is pedagogical theory from the 1950s.
Well, I was wondering that
1920s.
Because I saw a teacher.
That is behaviorist theory with conditioning.
Remember, I told you that I saw a teacher. They were asking a student what they want to do when they get older and talk about career, and he said he wanted to be a YouTuber.
He wanted to be a YouTuber.
And she told him, like, no, that's not a real job. I'm looking at this and like,
how old is this woman? I'm telling you, a lot of these people in the ministry, they are indigenous to colonization. They were born, bred, and led in colonization, and guess what? They were ed in colonization as well. They only know how to win the colonizer game. To live your life as an expatriate in this country, accumulate a wealth off of the backs of poor people, the sweat off of poor people back, and then go repatriate to the motherland, right? Repatriate to the mother country and sit down and enjoy your wealth. They don't realize that they don't have the benefit of being the other. You are not the other. There is no them and us. You are Vincentian, we are Vincentian. There is no British expatriate and Vincentian nationals. We are all in the cesspool together. So when you think that you can accumulate your wealth and live in what environment where there is social stratification and marginalization, where there is social mistrust and unrest, where crime is on the rise. Anyway, let's stick up in there. Okay, so after all the rant, that is, what do you think about what I said today?
Very important on points. I learned a lot. Voluntarily, and I always enjoy speaking to you and listen to your views on issues, even though my attention span may not be, I might not be your best student, but good stuff.
You're not that bad. I've had some bad students. Y'all know who you are. Okay, but I've had some really great ones, and you're one of the great ones too.
Thank you.
Well, okay, so that's basically what we had to say today about that little news article and the information that I've been talking about. Like, I have been calling in on radio stations, I've been using my social media, I've been talking about this information at length, right? And I guess maybe without the context, people couldn't really relate to what I was saying. It's like, oh, she has all these issues with education. I guess they probably thought that I was trying to say I'm the best teacher, or I'm a good teacher, or whatever teacher ego that teachers have. Like, at the end of the day, students perform how they want to perform, Like, you could only prepare them as much, but majority of it is on the student. So how can we help students? The only thing that we can really do at this point in time is actually collect accurate data that paints a picture, a true representation of exactly what is happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And then from that, we could analyze data.
Listen, if I say data one more time, people are going to think I'm plugging instrumental, so you say it.
Right?
I'm not.
But data analytics is very important, right? And you can't analyze data unless you have data. So I think as a community, as a country, the citizens, we need to take responsible for part of the data collection, because much of the data comes from us. We need to participate, collaborate, we need to work along with the data collectors in order to get the data.
I see the importance of the data, because said data always leads to something, so don't overlook it. And I know we all have we have our past hurt and our reservations about how data is used and so on, but at the end of the day, data is data, Right? It's the same thing we say about commerce. Like, commerce is information, is what you do with the information is what makes it commerce. Right? So you could hear something and you can be guided and inspired and motivated or cautioned, or you can hear something and you you can make money. Of course.
Or you can get validation on social media.
Right.
But anyway, so like I said, the best thing that we can do right now as a country, let us stop blaming people. We know things bad, what done gone bad a morning can't come good at night. So let us just start over. Let us walk along with the data collectors. Let's really get some good data. If we want to know how bad the country really is, give the data. If you believe that the country is not as bad as they say and it's better than it is, then give the data.
Accurate data.
Right? So accurate data is key. And I think if we just walk along and we have the data, we will find analysts in St. Vincent. We will find people who can interpret the data. We can find people who can digitally transform, AI optimize data analytics, forecasting, you name it. Listen, we can find...
I will not get any job in this place.
Please hire my husband. I'm high maintenance.
And with that,
thank you so much for watching. Join us next time.
Take care.